Hello, I'm Karen Newell, and I am co-founder of Sacred Acoustics. Sacred Acoustics creates brainwave entrainment audio recordings, and I'm here today to explain to you how that works and how they can be used in all kinds of different ways, but especially for developing and cultivating spiritual health. So, binaural beats have long been known to support focus, sleep, creativity, and these specialized audio frequencies are able to calm the thinking mind. And this creates a foundation to evoke expanded states of awareness. Now, with regular practice, using these techniques, often combined with other techniques, these potential benefits include not only sleep, focus, and concentration, but the potential to experience a direct connection with unity consciousness and unconditional love. So, what we mean by spiritual health is that sense of connection to that unity consciousness, something greater, and also a sense of meaning and purpose in your lives. And so that's what we mean by spiritual health. And how can sound help us? Well, sound has been around for millennia, really, and it's been used to induce altered states and healing effects since ancient times. And this type of sound includes chanting, drumming, brass bowls, gongs, crystal bowls, anything that sort of invokes this kind of wah, wah sound. And tuning forks can be used to create these binaural beats as well. And it was actually a Prussian physicist and meteorologist Henrik Wilhelm Dove who discovered binaural beats in 1839. He used tuning forks to experiment with these effects. And he would place one tuning fork on one side of the ear and the other tuning fork on the other side of the head. And this produced a perception of just one sound, this wah, wah sound, much like crystal bowls and brass bowls. Now, these types of sounds are actually producing binaural beats. And I'm not sure that ancient societies understood that that's what they were doing, but that's what we call them in modern times, thanks to Wilhelm Dove. And so studies started to be done, and in the middle of it was around 1960 or so, that in the United States, Robert Monroe started experimenting with these sounds, and he began a system of creating them using digital, more modern sound creation technologies. And that's only advanced into the modern age. Now, every brain is unique. So just like any other sort of techniques like this, not everyone who will listen to listen to binaural beats will have the same response. Now, am I able to share a PowerPoint here? I forgot to ask you that.
Yes, please.
How do I do that?
I couldn't help you.
Let me just try. Can you see the slideshow?
Not yet.
No, okay, then I don't know how to do it in this technology. Okay, so I hope you can can you edit this part out, or shall I start again?
Yeah, we can add it.
Okay, thank you. So binaural beats are intentionally created to induce various brainwave states that are associated with levels of consciousness or awareness. And so these brainwave states are known as, I'll start with beta. This is measured with an EEG device, the electric signal that comes out of the brain, measured in hertz or cycles per second. And so the beta state, that's the state that we're in right now. We're walking, we're talking, we're interacting with other people. That's measured with an EEG device to be 12 to 30 hertz. Now, above 30 hertz, that's the gamma state. And that's associated with, people often say, the runner's high, or these very intense, deep states of connection to something beyond this physical world. That's the gamma state. But the states that we're interested in are actually below the beta state. That starts with alpha, 8 to 12 hertz, is associated with focus and concentration. So when the brain starts to slow down into a focus state, you were considered to be in an alpha state of awareness. Below that, 4 to 7 hertz, is the theta state. This state is associated with deep relaxation, with creativity, with meditation. And this is the state that we're often interested in getting to, that more relaxed state. Now, the delta state, that 0 to 4 hertz, that's associated with sleep. And so when we're asleep, it's a very low signal that's coming out of the brain. But if we're dreaming, you'll start to see a little alpha pop up. Dream sleep is associated with alpha. So the brain is often in many states at once. It's not just one state as you go throughout your day. So how do these binaural beats affect the brain? Well, the human hearing range is 20 to 20,000 hertz. And so we're interested in driving states below that 20 hertz level that the human ear cannot even hear. And so the way that these audio technology is formed is by putting, just like with those tuning forks, one signal in one ear, a slightly different signal in the other ear. And so it's the difference between those two signals that sort of match up with these different brainwave states. So 4 hertz, that's the border between awake and asleep. This is associated with the hypnagogic state, where the body is profoundly relaxed, but the mind is still aware. And so very often we will include roughly around 4 hertz signals in our brainwave entrainment audio recordings. And that is so that people can enter these lower states of awareness, but not go to the point where they actually fall asleep. And so we were able to actually measure using an IBVA device that measures the brainwave frequency in the frontal lobes. And we found that when people start listening to our recordings, that when, we can see in real time that the brain is very busy, but then when the sound starts and the listener starts to get into a calm state, almost immediately those brain waves are calmed into those lower states of awareness. So this is something that we can all use really as an aid to help us get more relaxed in order to focus, get better sleep, and also to achieve all kinds of other effects. There are so many effects that can be achieved by using these types of recordings. Now, in the Sacred Acoustics recordings that I create with my business partner and audio engineer, Kevin Cossey, our technology we refer to as neural helix. There's lots and lots of ways to create binaural beats, but we include monaural beats with our binaural beats. We include every frequency in these recordings are harmonic to every other frequency. Not all binaural beat producers do that. And one advantage is that when the carrier frequencies, those frequencies we can hear, are combined using harmonic principles, they're much easier on the ear. And we don't need to include, like many others do, sounds of rain or white noise, pink noise to help mask those digital frequencies. And so the potential effects of these type of recordings are very wide. At first, people will feel the physical effects. They might feel a little tingling or buzzing in their body. They might feel immediate relaxation. Others might feel a little restless because they're not used to this sort of thing. Some might feel very hot or very cold. But what we do know by all of these effects is that these recordings are affecting the physical body in very interesting ways. Now, you can also have mental effects. People will say that their thoughts, those racing thoughts going through their minds, are calmer when they listen to these recordings. Others might get certain messages from their intuitive self. They might see images or scenes of events. There's all kinds of mental images that can appear. Sometimes people will get what we might call a thought balloon, where all kinds of information comes at once, and it's hard to kind of analyze in that moment. But the binaural beats allow us to sort of slow down time and understand maybe more about what's going on there. Others might have emotional effects. They might, easily enter into a state of calm and feelings of love, but others might feel a little anxiety. And what this usually is showing us is that the sounds are able to sort of bring our attention to whatever is in our emotional system. And sometimes those are unprocessed emotions from the past. And so these recordings for some can help to kind of trigger those emotions and allow us to then release them. Another kind of effect we can have is a spiritual effect. People will say that they encounter spirit guides or this feeling of connection to something greater, feeling like they're home and surrounded by unconditional love. All of these are things that can happen. When people start to listen on a more regular basis, they might start to begin to develop other sort of telepathic abilities or noting synchronicities in their lives more frequently. They might understand what people are thinking before that person shares that information. Basically, it opens us up to expanding our physical perceptions into more expanded ability. So all of those things are possible as we listen to binaural beats. Now, some of these sort of extrasensory perceptions I'm describing come with regular listening. And so sometimes people will have effects immediately at the first listen, and others need time to practice and develop these types of techniques. So, what is this? How can we use this? Every single brain is different, and so everyone will respond a little bit differently. So, it's not serving as a specific driver. We can't deliver 4 hertz signals to every single brain and expect that brain to respond in exactly the same way. And yet, these reported effects are voluminous. There are all kinds of studies that have been done, studies related to cognition, stress, mood, PTSD, and sacred acoustics neural helix recordings were actually used in a pilot study that measured levels of anxiety. Now, this was done in a New York City busy psychiatric practice by Dr. Anna Usum. And she published this study in the Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease in February of 2020. And what that showed is over at least 2 weeks of listening, regular listening to recordings that I provided, and I also provided the listening routine protocols. And what she found was using the state trait anxiety inventory used in the psychiatric field to measure anxiety levels very regularly. It's a trustworthy form and system. And what they showed after 2 weeks of listening was a 26% reduction in anxiety, which is actually rather remarkable from a psychiatric point of view. And we know this because in the control group, these are people in her psychiatric practice who continued their regular therapy but did not add a system routine of listening to these binaural beats. And they saw a 7% reduction in anxiety over the same time period. And so just combining the two made such a big difference. And I think it's because it really put the sort of ability to manage their inner world really into their own hands. It empowered people by giving them the tools to find out for themselves what's going on in that inner world when we take the time to quiet the mind. So many Western minds, especially, aren't as easily able to adapt to meditation routines. And so these recordings can really serve as a helpful support, sort of as training wheels. But people have done very creative things with these recordings. Along with sleep, relaxation, focus, the things I've been mentioning, there was a blind woman who wrote to me from the Netherlands, and she had huge amounts of anxiety because when she would walk out in the world, she used a cane to get along, and she could always sort of detect the lower obstacles that were in her way, but not the higher obstacles like branches, tree branches, or signs. And she would just walk right into things, and it created huge amount of anxiety. And so she devised on her own that she would listen to one of our audio recordings. It was actually low band pi trance in this case. And she would walk on a treadmill inside of her home. And as she walked on that treadmill, listening to this recording, she would imagine herself walking out in the world. And when that anxiety would arise from the potential of running into something, she would just tackle it head on. She would imagine herself just breathing through that anxiety and getting through that moment. And over time, this practice helped her to be able to get back out in the world. And so, what an amazing thing that has been. We've known of addiction doctors who have used these recordings in two different ways. One doctor told us that his patients would come in all strung out and anxious, and he would place headphones on these individuals playing our Om recording. This Om recording is free, available free on our website, sacredacoustics.com, just by entering your email address. And he used this same recording, and when he would put it on these addiction patients, they would just suddenly get calm. And so he was then able to engage and discuss with them and move further in their therapy. There's another addiction doctor in Florida, Dr. Mark Leeds, and he actually prescribes sacred acoustics recordings to help his addiction patients because they are being very successful, for example, using medication to withdraw from opioids. But then they feel anxious, they don't feel relaxed. And so these tones help them to stay calmer, to get through their therapy. We know of other therapists here in the United States. Two different locations of acupuncturists wrote to me rather close to each other. They were both treating children who had attempted suicide but had failed. And so they were in therapy trying to work through their issues. And these acupuncturists, this was part of their therapy, was to get acupuncture sessions. And while they gave these acupuncture sessions, they would play different sacred acoustics or neural helix recordings in the background. And some of these kids, these teenagers, started saying amazing things like, oh my gosh, I feel so connected and alive. If only I had felt this way before I tried to kill myself, I never would have tried. And so the potential here is just amazing to give people this opportunity to connect and sort of leave that thinking, anxious mind behind and move past all of that into this sort of birthright we all have to connect to something greater. And that something greater, very often as people begin to encounter it, it's created with love. It's this force of love that's available to all of us. Now, I do also want to mention another listener of ours actually listened to these recordings on very low volume throughout the day, which is not something we recommend. But in his case, it actually helped him to take his mind off of his chronic neuropathy, pain he had throughout his body. So the potential here is amazing for spiritual growth, for physical healing, intuitive development, creativity, focus, inner guidance. Lots and lots of people have used these recordings to really grow spiritually. Others have been able to connect with the souls of departed loved ones. They've been able to induce out-of-body experience and connect with spirit guides. They've been able to trigger and release previously unresolved and unprocessed emotions. I am one of those people. It was very effective. And it's that theta state, the same state that the blind person used on the treadmill. This allows us to move through these fear moments in a more stable, connected, grounded kind of way. And this world is full of fear and anxiety right now. And I have this vision that all souls can come to this understanding. And for that reason, on the sacredacoustics.com website, you can access the same recordings used in that pilot study. It's called the Whole Mind Bundle, and the price was drastically reduced at the time of the COVID pandemic a couple years ago. But now we also have an option where it's completely free. So there's no barrier for anyone who wishes to try this. And I encourage anyone to not just hear what I'm saying, but to go and listen for yourself. We recommend using headphones for the best experience. And the best way for anyone to learn how binaural beats can really help their own system is to try it for yourself. And so I encourage anyone to do this and combine it with other meditative techniques that you might also be using, and experiment, use trial and error, and find what works best for you.
Thank you very much. Now, if it's okay, I will just ask you a few questions. First of all, you mentioned about spiritual growth. Sometimes people using the phrase emotional intelligence, IQ, or sometimes they're using spiritual intelligence. And some people believe that we have three main kinds of intelligence. It's a spiritual intelligence, it's a emotional intelligence, and IQ. How you see this? What do you think about this spiritual intelligence? What is it for you?
Well, for me, I think that model is very useful because it shows us that we have our IQ, the thinking mind, and then we have our emotional intelligence. Those are the ones that we sort of work with on a regular basis. We might react emotionally to something in the world, and then we use our emotion to sort of manage that situation, really thoughts and emotions combined. But the spiritual intelligence is really something else. That's where we get behind those reactive emotions. We get behind those, sometimes racing thoughts that we can't seem to manage. And we find this other essence of who we truly are. And when we can tap into that essence through whatever means, that allows us to really understand more about who we really are, why we came here, what is our purpose, what is the broader perspective of what brought us here to particular challenges, to particular situations. Why are we engaged in certain relationships with others? It's not just our thoughts and emotions about other people. There's another drive, and that's that spiritual intelligence that we're all born with, but we don't always, especially in the West, the Western mind, I can speak very clearly to, we don't always have access to that spiritual intelligence. Many of us deny that it actually exists, and others will believe that it exists, but don't know how to access it. And so that is a highly important aspect of our life, is accessing that spiritual intelligence, understanding who we are behind those racing thoughts and reactive emotions. So for me, that model works very nicely.
It's very interesting because Carl Gustav Jung, he mentioned one time that the most of the problems which his client have is a problem with spirituality. They said if we can solve the problem with spirituality, we probably will solve most of the psychological problem because this is the beginning.
Well, and let me tell you, we have this very common phrase that's used very often called mind over matter. Somehow, many people believe that if we can change our thoughts, we can change physical reality. But it's more than that. It's spirit over matter. It's when we can combine all of that together and bring our thoughts, our feelings, and that spiritual intelligence to a situation. So completely in alignment there.
Yeah, some people believe that the spiritual intelligence is kind of the bridge between IQ and emotional intelligence. It's something which helps us to combine these two things, not to living in separation between our matter and emotion. A few more questions. What is consciousness for you?
Consciousness is the awareness that we exist, just the awareness that we can move that awareness to wherever we wish. That free will is embedded in that consciousness because we can manage our consciousness very directly. And so using that consciousness is fundamental. Consciousness is what physical reality emerges out of. This is opposite of what we are taught by conventional materialist scientists, that consciousness arises from the physical brain. But the opposite, I believe, is true, more a system of idealism, metaphysical or ontological idealism, where consciousness is fundamental. And it is precisely our emotional, intellectual, and spiritual awareness that actually influences unfolding reality. It's just that we don't understand quite yet that mechanism. And so sometimes it can happen unbidden, say in the cases of miraculous healing or cancer remission. What was that mechanism that caused that person to get better, but not someone else? We don't fully understand that yet, but the more we look at that spiritual connection, I think the more we're going to find those answers.
Another thing, from your point of view, in the best scenario, what do you think, what we can achieve? because now we have the access to different kind of the tools which help us to have the conscious evolution of our brain, of our life, or even of our body. Now, first time in the history of the human race, we can look inside our brain, we can look inside our body, we can measure this, we can learn how to do, like using the neurofeedback, what we can do with this. What do you think, from your opinion, from your point of view, how far we can reach?
The potential is unlimited. It's limited only by our imaginations. Albert Einstein famously said, knowledge is nothing, imagination is everything. And knowledge, that's the things we learn from books that other people tell us. Imagination comes from inside of us. That's our inspiration, our creativity. And Einstein himself would get into a hypnagogic state and out in a rowboat. And that's where he was able to access these ideas and these important concepts that bring us to our modern understanding of the world. If more and more people are able to tap into this consciousness beyond our thoughts and emotions, that spiritual aspect, the more we're going to be able to discover even more about how our reality works, especially human involvement in that reality. We are not just static beings or dynamic beings living in a static world. The entire system that we are a part of is dynamic. And we are a key part of that precisely because of our consciousness, because we are able to tap into these types of abilities. And the more people who are able to do this, to find that connection from within, to tap into those gifts that each of us has uniquely, the more of us who are able to bring those unique gifts to the world, the more our world will begin to benefit from all of the gifts that lie deep inside each of us.
It's when you believe that that we can change the world by changing ourselves.
Absolutely. That phrase, be the change you want to see in the world, is absolutely related to all of this. And when people say that the outer world is a reflection of our inner world, I've experienced that myself. I know when I wanted to make a lot of changes in my personal life, I tried all kinds of ways with my actions and behaviors, but it's when I began to focus on my inner world, when I began to find that settled peace inside, releasing my unprocessed emotions and all of that, that's when I was really able to bring that energy here and now. The outer world completely changed as I did this, seemingly without me having to do anything. By focusing in my inner world, the outer world changed. And this can be seen as a microcosm of our entire world. Because as my world changed around me, if each of us were doing this, the world would change around each of us. And slowly but surely, or maybe not so slowly, we would start to see a different world. And, all those studies that were done in transcendental meditation, where a certain percentage of people would meditate, really just get calm inside and focused, they were able to affect crime rates. I mean, the potential here is really unlimited if we really put some time, effort, and belief into the understanding that this system is powerful. And tapping into consciousness, I believe, is the key to really advancing us beyond the idea that only our physical world is real. There is much more beyond the physical world that has been accessed by individuals, and more of us who are able to do that bring that energy into the actions of this world. It's not about escaping this world. It's about bringing that energy into this world to make it a better place for all.
How we can get there? How we can be in our full potential? How we can be human 2.0?
Well, it takes a lot of people have the motivation to do this just from within. More and more people are finding their way to this. But we can help by shifting understandings and policies around all of this. Our policies in the Western world are really based on the understanding that we're all separate individuals with individual rights. And I feel as if we can sort of shift our understanding, and we can do this from a scientific perspective, a rational perspective, this understanding that we're all connected. We are all part of this one primordial consciousness. We have this illusion of separation. And so if we can shift this understanding, I think it will bring a lot more individuals into the sort of space that allows them to explore in this way. So it takes individuals wanting to use their curiosity to understand more about how the world works and their place in it. And it really would be helpful if, academic institutions and medical facilities and all kinds of other more scientific oriented institutions really started to grasp these understandings in a more realistic way. Modern science, on the frontier edge of all of this, does have that understanding. Those scientists who study consciousness at its deepest level, and those scientists, when they start to get more and more people understanding this, I believe that individuals will have the confidence and drive to want to be involved and make a difference in this world.
Yeah, we need proof. It's difficult to believe, especially in this time and in this place.
Well, the proof is there. It just depends on which scientists you're listening to. There are plenty of scientists out there. I would direct you to, what is it called? The Galileo Commission. It's based in England. GalileoCommission.org is scientists from all around the world who are completely on board with this philosophy we're discussing.
Ah, that's interesting. I will take a look. And last question. What do you think, what is the biggest problem which we should solve now if you want to achieve this perfect state of mind, perfect world? What we should do? What kind of the problem, what kind of the question we should find the answer?
I think the most critical thing for each of us to really know, not just believe, but to know at a very deep level, is that we are at a fundamental level spiritual energy. We are living in physical bodies, and it's a very important process that we're going through, but fundamentally we are spiritual beings. And that spirituality that forms us from the near-death experience field and these scientists who study consciousness, they understand that love is the force that drives this consciousness. When people tap into this, amazing things happen. Even near-death experiencers talk about this amazing, palpable love that they connect with. And some of them have told me, you can't bring that love back here. And in reality, I've touched that love. I can't know if it's the same love they've felt, but amazingly powerful sense of unity with all other souls on earth. If people can get just a flavor, a sliver of that, it is so, so powerful. And so I have a vision that, I like to imagine a world where every soul on earth knows how to tap into their heart energy, knows how to tap into that heart energy that then connects with the heart energy of all other souls on earth, understanding that whatever I do hurts another. Whatever anxiety is inside of me is actually affecting others around me without me having to say a word. So if every individual on earth could find this connection, that would prevent so much of our troubles in the world, war, depression, anxiety, all the mental health issues. If only we could have this compassion for all other souls on earth, thinking of ourselves, of course, as innovative individuals, but at the same time, we're connected to billions of other innovative, special, unique individuals. And it's all of us together. It's like facets on a diamond. Each of us is a facet of that diamond. And when we all can feel that connection we share, that diamond will shine most brilliantly. How we get there depends on, people finding that drive and systems and policies set up to point people in that direction. Those policies exist now. There's policies all over the world teaching people how to kind of approach their society. And if we could build that in I imagine a world where every child grows up knowing how to do this, how to tap into that loving energy, knowing that it's affecting the people around them. As those children grow up, they turn into parents, doctors, teachers, janitors, bus drivers, all souls on earth. If they knew how to approach life from this loving energy, that's what I think could change this world.
It means the best solution from your point of view is to create the compassion experience for everybody, because only experience changes. And if I
Correct.
understand what you are doing in your company, you're trying to create the tools which help people to be more close to themselves, and at the same time few of your tools help them to experience and to feel the compassion.
That is correct. Yep, you've summed it up very nicely. And all of us are going to find a different set of tools. This is one tool of many that has helped so many souls on this earth, and the potential there to help so many others. And if you do try and it doesn't work, try other techniques. There are so many techniques that are available to us. And finding that connection, yes, I believe is the most important thing that can help our world. And it seems counterintuitive. We would think, no, you need to change something outside of us to help the world. But it's not, that's not how it works. We focus first on ourselves, and the world then takes care of itself based on that reflection from our inner worlds. And collectively, if we could do this, anxiety goes away and depression goes away. We all feel this sense of connection. That's a world I want to live in.
Thank you very much. It's my favorite word too. Okay, thank you.